Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Home Video Library. I'm your host Nathan P. Butler. This time we take a look at something that has entered my collection that is not in great condition, but it's such a rare item that I felt compelled to go ahead and pick it up so that we could finally show it here on the show. I could consider it part of my Star Wars Home Video Library, but still maybe keep it sequestered in hopes that someday I might be able to replace it with a better copy. And again, I apologize, like in the last episode, if I sound a little odd, if I'm a little bit low energy here. I am still getting over COVID at this point. In fact, this is my second time trying to record this episode because I got so caught up in the COVID brain fog in trying to record the first time. I had no idea what the hell I was saying and just had to stop. So hopefully this one goes better. You may recall that in 1986, we saw the first VHS release from Star Wars: Jedi, The Making of a Saga, one of those early Star Wars documentaries here, and it came through Playhouse Video. They all have kind of this orangish, fading to yellowish packaging here. We saw the same thing with Classic Creatures: Return of the Jedi. Label-wise, it's that sort of basic label here, but the key thing being with Playhouse Video being that it typically is in that kind of weird, like magenta type print instead of being black. And we saw this a long time ago, and we saw Classic Creatures: Return of the Jedi. But one of the things that I was questioning at the time was whether there was a beta version of it, and later was able to confirm that there was such a thing, but it is incredibly, incredibly rare. So I had sort of given up on being able to get one anytime soon. I just kind of put a saved search on eBay and just kept an eye out in hopes that maybe someday one would come around. And one finally did, and it's a bit of a journey to how it actually got here. So let's look at the item and then I'll give you a little bit about the journey here. So this is a beta copy, the very rare beta copy of From Star Wars: Jedi, The Making of a Saga. Notice it's a little bit faded here, but you have the title, Lucas around all the models and everything, cast crew information, Playhouse Video down there, Playhouse Video, title again. The other spine, Playhouse Video, title, and then along with your closed caption and your product number, you have beta as a sticker, and that is the only thing on this package denoting it as beta. Then there's the back, images from it, little tagline information about it and whatnot. Then you got Playhouse Video, all your legalese and everything, runtime down at the bottom. So side-by-side comparison here, really the only difference is that they've covered up the VHS logo with a beta sticker, as was the case with many sort of late generation beta cassettes where there was a VHS release as well and they just reused the VHS packaging with a frickin' sticker on it. We saw that quite often. Now the inside of the package, again, like a lot of the ones we've seen, has that extra padding inside to actually hold the beta cassette, because the beta cassette is going to be shorter than the packaging itself. The packaging is designed for VHS size. And then here is the actual cassette. So we have, again, a Playhouse Video label with that magenta text. We have the logo for the company. We have the title. We have all your runtime legalese and all that down there. Now, I would note here with this, part of the reason why I am not psyched, or not as psyched as I probably could be about finally finding this sort of white whale or holy grail, is if you look at the actual cassette there, I don't know if you can see it. It looks like somebody opened this up and played in a sandbox. That is a lot of mold on this cassette. That is one downside of magnetic tape formats, in that you can have mold actually get on the cassette itself. And I haven't really bothered in the past with actually going through to get any of my cassettes with mold, because I don't have very many cleaned, but this would be something that would need a cleaning job. For now, I am taking the cassette itself, which we have now seen, so we don't need to see the physical item anymore as I talk about the journey to get it. I put it inside one of my little protective covers here. I am sticking that inside a Ziploc bag and closing it up. And this, along with my other two cassettes that have mold on them, are going to be sequestered from the rest of the collection. So I can now say that I finally have this very rare item, just a beta version of this, but at some point I would love to be able to replace at least the cassette, because yes, there is a definite mold issue on that cassette. As to the journey of getting it here, if you're only caring about the product itself, that is all for me to show. Like literally it's just, hey, a beta version exists, and that's what it looks like. It essentially is just a beta version of everything we saw previously with the VHS. Nothing fancy, just incredibly rare. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with the home video viewers if you don't care about the journey. Okay, but This I found was a nice case study in how completely batshit crazy the VHS and beta market is right now. Thanks to a lot of overhype and a lot of just sort of pipe dreams, I guess, of the people that own stuff. So when this popped up as an eBay saved search, it popped up as a listing for this. From Star Wars: The Jedi, The Making of a Saga, Playhouse Video on VHS. But I happened to look at the images, and sure enough, the images showed that spine there with beta on it. I'm like, huh. There were no pictures of the cassette itself, which made me kind of wonder, okay, what is this person actually selling? So they have this listing. It shows this packaging with the beta sticker on it, listed as VHS, and then it also is said to include a beta copy of The Empire Strikes Back as well. For what it's worth, the beta copy of The Empire Strikes Back had no cover on it. It was so old and discolored that I just tossed it as soon as it arrived. It was in pretty terrible shape. Like, literally, the inside was so discolored, it was basically orange. But I'm like, huh. The buy it now price is $80. For this to be the beta copy, $80 is not a bad price at all. It's pretty rare. But I want to make sure this is actually the real deal because he's saying VHS. Maybe this is actually someone who has the VHS cassette inside beta packaging, perhaps, and I don't want to actually buy it if that's the case, since they're not showing the cassette. So I reach out to the seller and ask, hey, just wanted to double check. You're listing this as VHS. This is actually beta, right? At which point, like, oh, yes, it is beta. Thank you so much for reminding me or clarifying or whatever. At which point, immediately after answering my question, the seller changes the buy it now price from $80 to $10,000. No, that was not a joke. Well, it's a joke, but changed it to $10,000. Unsurprisingly, it doesn't sell at $10,000, and a few days later, they lower the buy it now price to $5,000. And oddly, it still doesn't sell. At which point they then drop it again to its final listed price of $3,895. This is what happens in a market of pure speculation. It's ridiculous. Oh, I have a beta. Oh, it's rare. I don't even know if this person realized it's rare. Maybe they were just looking at previous listings or using one of those like programs that look at whether there were previous listings to set a possible price. But wow, that's absolutely batshit crazy. But it was set up as a making offers type of listing. So I made an offer actually fairly early on for $100. I offered 20 more than the original buy it now price of $80, and it was auto rejected. Like literally no time passed between when it went in and when it was rejected. So there was no way this was actually a human being clicking no. A little while later though, I was basically saying, screw it, I'm not even going to bother with it because that's ridiculous, that's nuts. James Snow, who is a member of the Star Wars Home Video community, who unfortunately is actually right now getting out of Star Wars Home Video collecting and unloading some of his stuff by selling some of his collection in the Star Wars Home Video group right now. But he put in an offer, and the counter offer he got back, way better than my counter offer, because when I got a counter offer it was in the thousands. The counter offer he got back was $145. Huh. So I had a sense that there was sort of a reasonable angle here that maybe around $150 the person would actually accept. So I reached out and was like, okay, can I see the cassette? And I did get pictures of the cassette back. And I should have looked a little more closely. I could tell it was a little dark inside. I didn't realize quite how much mold was in there, but it looked like there was probably mold in it. But being as rare as it was, I was like, you know what? I will stick with the $150. I will make a $150 offer. I make the offer. It is auto-rejected. At which point I actually have already engaged that seller in conversation a little bit and was like, I'm trying to offer you $150, it's auto-rejecting. They had no idea it was auto-rejecting, so they then turned around and made me an offer of the $150, and I was able to accept it from my end. But this, again, is kind of a case study of two things with buying online when it comes to this weird hype around magnetic tape formats. One, people who figure out they've got something that may have some value tend to vastly overshoot what there's any chance of something selling for when they put it up on eBay. At least in this case, it was a rare item, for an extremely high price that nobody was going to actually pay, as opposed to these common items we see all the time at really high prices that no one's going to pay. So at least there was some moderate logic behind this, and it was behind a make me an offer type of listing, so lower offers were being allowed. But that's the kind of thing you see a ton in this particular market. The second thing, though, is don't ask questions. It is an example of why you should never ask questions. If you find something you think is what you're looking for, and it looks like maybe the person doesn't realize what they have, so they're asking a decent price for it, don't ask questions, because heaven forbid you ask questions and they realize what they've got, they may jack up the price and say thank you at the same time. I could have kept my mouth shut and got this for about half of what I actually wound up paying for it in the end. It would have been a gamble. I wouldn't actually have seen the cassette to know that there was that mold issue potentially involved. And I would have been waiting with bated breath for the package to arrive to even know for sure if it's a beta cassette or if it was VHS, because they had listed it as VHS. But I could have got it for a lot cheaper and felt better about the purchase than I actually do now, because by opening my stupid mouth to let them know, hey, isn't this beta that you have? And causing them to, I guess, look it up or something, they wound up jacking up the price massively, and I had to jump through those hoops to eventually get it for, granted, a smaller price than they were asking for, which was ridiculous, but still a higher price than if I just kept my damn mouth shut and bought the freaking thing when I saw it. So just be aware. A couple of cautionary tales built into this story. But at least now I've been able to show you that there was indeed a beta version of From Star Wars to Jedi, The Making of a Saga from Playhouse Video, what that looked like as the cassette, what that looked like on the packaging, and now it can be sequestered within my collection to keep that mold nice and contained for now. With that, we'll wrap up this cautionary tale of an episode. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with the home video viewers.